Well, now we are joined by Alastair Campbell, a rare moment. Thank you for coming in. This row between you and the BBC, I mean, many will see it as a diversionary tactic to prevent people actually seeing the real issue here, which is that MPs are not getting to the root of whether, in fact, the intelligence we were provided with was the real intelligence provided by the intelligence services.
Well, if people wish to see it as a diversionary tactic, they may. The media are constantly telling people never to take things at face value. This isn't a row between me and the BBC. This is an attempt by the government to get the BBC to admit that a fundamental attack upon the integrity of the government, the Prime Minister, the intelligence agencies, let alone people, the evil spin doctors in the dark who do their dirty works in the minds of a lot of journalists, let them just accept for once they have got it wrong. The allegation, let's just understand what this allegation amounted to. And these weasel words in Richard Sandbrook's letter today, that says to me, we didn't make the allegation, we reported a source making the allegation. What does that say about journalism? You've been in journalism for decades. I was a journalist for quite a long time. I respect a huge number of journalists, including many at the BBC. But they're now saying, you can say anything you want on the television because somebody said it to you. Doesn't matter if it's true.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you check it. Doesn't
However,
matter if it's corroborated.
The BBC's riposte to you is very reasoned. It is set in the context of all the other information which was in the public domain. It's entirely consistent with that information. It credits The Guardian, The Observer, The Independent, The Times. I mean, most of Fleet Street had similar accounts of what intelligence sources were telling them. The BBC doesn't seem to be out of step with anybody else.
The BBC, in their letter to me, and it's fascinating, they have post facto justification of the story by citing sources in newspapers which wrote stories subsequent to the story that they had done. Some of those stories, I know for a fact, are incorrect. One of them, there's no point going through all the detail, I think the public are probably bored rigid with this already. One of those stories I know for a fact is wrong, and I've addressed in evidence to the...
I think the public is more likely to be concerned at the extraordinarily intemperate language which is coming out on behalf of the Prime Minister in your name. The story was a lie. It is a lie.
Correct.
Weasel words. Weasel not incidentally spelt correctly, in consistent terms with the original fake dossier.
If I may say so, the statement that you're reading from was read to the Press Association. So I wouldn't get hung up on a spelling mistake by somebody who's typed it. Although I know that you also, John, reported the 4 people in my office were responsible for writing the so-called dodgy dossier when they were not. However, put that to one side. The reason that is weasel words is it does not answer the questions that I put. I asked the BBC whether they were standing by the allegation they made, the BBC made, as John Humphreys described it, the BBC made the allegation that we deliberately exaggerated, abused,
and the answer to that question that you put to the BBC, the answer to the question you put to the BBC, do they stand by it? The answer is yes.
The answer,
a robust yes.
Excuse me, that letter is about as robust as Blackburn Rovers were when they played Trelleborgs. I'll tell you, the answer to the question, yes or no, did we abuse British intelligence? The answer to that question is no.
We don't know. The answer to that question is we do not know. And the reason we do not know is that there is obfuscation and diversion, part of which we're seeing right here played out before us. The fact is MPs want to question the chiefs of the intelligence services and should be allowed to do so. Instead, you're preferring, the government, are preferring a hole-in-the-corner operation with an intelligence committee which is not held in public and which is answerable to the Prime Minister.
Well, part of the problem I alluded to in my evidence to the Select Committee is that a lot of journalists see their mission to discredit politicians and the political process. You describe people like Anne Taylor, who chairs the Intelligence and Security Committee, as a hole-in-the-corner operation. You're talking in intelligence agencies about people who do very difficult, brave jobs.
You know very well that Anne Taylor was appointed by the Prime Minister,
correct,
is answerable to the Prime Minister and accountable to the Prime Minister.
No, she submits her reports to the Prime Minister.
He has the right to publish
judgments about what is published on security and intelligence grounds.
The point about the committee that is sitting here and that questioned you today, the day before
Wednesday.
On Wednesday, and questioned the Foreign Secretary today, is that it is one that is accountable to MPs, selected by MPs, and accountable to us as electors. And that is the committee which should be allowed to get to the root of this issue, and that surely is what the government is preventing them doing.
Let me just say this about that. I'm not going to talk about the FAC's inquiry, because I don't think I should until they've concluded it. I will, however, say this. Donald Anderson, as I understand it, and his committee had a private session with Jack Straw today, in which they will discuss some of these issues. I have submitted today to the committee, and I don't intend to discuss the contents at all, but I've submitted further answers to the questions that they asked me, which go in some detail into the intelligence issues and the specific question, the charge that I distorted British intelligence, that I inserted a claim that was not true, that I knew it not to be true. They are serious allegations.
But you've heard the Foreign Secretary himself tell that committee that that dossier was a Horlicks.
No, sorry. Again, deliberate conflation of two things.
He said,
correct yourself. Correct yourself. It is not the same document. Do you accept that?
Which is not the same document.
You just said the Foreign Secretary described the dossier as a Horlicks.
The dodgy dossier.
Excuse me, we were talking about the weapons of mass destruction dossier. This is the problem. People who have been opposed to this conflict from the word go are now seeking to change the ground and to say the Prime Minister led the country into conflict on a false basis, and you're deliberately conflating
the
two
issue
issues.
in play here today is absolutely that this war was fought on the basis of intelligence information. That intelligence information, firstly, the charge is that in the first document in September there were serious errors of fact. We now know.
Sorry, the first document in September, there were serious errors of fact. And what were they, John?
The Niger allegation, in which the minister who was supposed to have signed the nuclear purchasing order had himself resigned many years before.
And you know, do you, John, that was the basis on which British intelligence put that in the dossier? You know that, do you? Because if you think that, you are wrong. There were no errors of fact in the WMD dossier in September 2000.
The Niger source was nothing to do with us.
It was another country's intelligence, and the British intelligence put what they put in that dossier on the basis of British intelligence. Get your facts right before you make serious allegations against government and against intelligence agencies.
One fact is absolutely incontrovertible, and that is the second dossier, the dodgy dossier, was indeed just that. And the last question...
I have acknowledged, I have admitted. Let me just draw this contrast between myself and between the government and the BBC. On Wednesday, at that select committee, I acknowledged we had made a mistake. I accepted responsibility for that on behalf of the the official in my office.
That is all a part of it. That's a matter of record.
Can I finish the point? The BBC, I'm all in favour of senior management defending...
I want to ask you one last question, because I don't think we're going to clarify this, but I want one last question.
I want to finish the
last question is,
well,
you are now part of the story. When the government's communications chief is himself part of the story, isn't it time he resigned?
Oh, for heaven's sake, the reason I am part of the story is that a BBC journalist made an allegation about me.
Against whom the BBC believe you have a vendetta. Because he's caused you trouble.
I have never met the guy. I have never met Andrew Gilligan. I don't have a vendetta against him. I do believe that anybody with an interest in good, decent journalism, of which there is a huge amount in this country, should understand that when allegations are made, when lies are broadcast, when, as that letter shows, there is not a shred of evidence to substantiate the allegation, they should apologise, and then we can move on, we can get focusing on the things that really matter to your viewers out there, which are the public service in the country, the economy of this country, and the foreign policy of this country. And given
the mistake that you've admitted regarding the second dossier, have you offered your resignation?
No, I haven't, John. And what's more, that's a further attempt to conflate the two issues. In contrast to the BBC, I have acknowledged we made a mistake. I have apologised on behalf of the government. Now, the BBC should acknowledge they've made a mistake, and they should apologise to the government. Then we can move on.
Alastair Campbell, thank you very much.